So you can see at the top, it says, hello, welcome to the Darknet Markets Bible for buyers. So it's targeting people who want to buy things through the darknet that are typically illegal. This is one of the main places where I believe people go to get the onion addresses of certain things they're looking for. There we go. So this has got some different stuff. So we've got drugs and chemicals, counterfeit items, digital products, fraud, guides and tutorials, jewels and gold, carded items, software and malware. Let's try that one. All right, so this is the generic Telegram account I just created yesterday, just so we could take a look at some things. What this is, so let's see here, 4 different ransomware, website, data. So this is breach data, 100 plus gigabytes, blog link. So here they want you to use TOX, which is a protocol, Tor protocol for communication, encrypted communication and video, where you can obviously communicate with them and get access to the full breach data.
So Stephen, I know you're going to show some really interesting stuff in this video, but I have to put up a disclaimer just for everyone who's watching. This isn't a video for everyone. So we're going to be showing some stuff here that's, not on the clear net. And perhaps Stephen, you can just jump in here and tell us, some warnings.
Yeah, a lot of the stuff we're going to talk about is about OPSEC or operational security and how to, as safely as possible, go into the darknet. But there's a lot of considerations, ways that you get the websites to go to, the .onion sites, which is the extension on the darknet. Where you're getting those addresses from, you want to make sure they're as trustworthy as possible, even though that's kind of hard. You don't want to go digging where you shouldn't go digging. It's actually not that easy to find things that you really shouldn't be looking at or probably don't ever want to see. You do have to dig for that stuff. So a lot of the things that are more superficial that we'll go through here are relatively easy to find. But again, you just want to be careful. I wouldn't consider myself some darknet expert. I've gone there to do things like buy and analyze malware, look at exploit kits, look for stolen books or literature that I've written and things like that. And especially one thing we'll talk about is called the Darknet Market Bible, which is a fantastic book about how to do good OPSEC. Unfortunately, it was written for those doing criminal activity, but obviously both sides need to worry about OPSEC. So it's a really great resource for that. But you will see things for sure that may be a little bit uncomfortable. So be prepared for that.
Really want to thank Heath and the team at TCM Security for sponsoring this video. Heath is really well known and respected in the cybersecurity space. One of their top certifications is the PNPT certification, Practical Network Penetration Tester. I've gone through some of the training that Heath has provided for this certification, and let me tell you, Heath is a fantastic instructor, fantastic course, fantastic certification that is gaining a lot of traction in the industry. Notice what's included: 50 hours of on-demand training. You get lifetime access to this training if you enroll for the certification. You get hands-on labs. You also get 1 exam attempt plus 1 free retake. You've got 5 days to complete the exam, 2 days to write a report. You've got to present a live debrief, and they have 24/7, 365 course support. What's fantastic to see is that Heath and the team are expanding their offering. New certification that's now available is the Practical Web Penetration Tester. Now, these certifications may be difficult if you're new to the field. So notice they have a junior penetration test cert that you can take, the PJPT, as well as a junior web test pen cert. What I really like about the training from Heath and his team is it's videos. You're not expected just to read a book. Video-based, labs. This is a practical exam. It's not multiple choice. You are going to be pen testing using a real-world lab scenario. So hands-on testing to make sure that you can actually hack. Now, what's really nice is all of TCM's exams include the required training courses that you need to study to pass your exam. And you have lifetime access, once again, to that training. You don't have to pay a monthly subscription. It's included in the cost. What's also great is there isn't an expiry date. If you pay today, you can take the exam next week or in 5 years. You don't have to take it within a certain amount of time. That's a huge benefit. If you prefer live training versus watching videos, TCM also have that offering. Now, what's great is you can use my link below to get a 10% discount from TCM. I really want to thank Heath for supporting my channel. If you want to see what the training's about, use the links below that take you to TCM's YouTube channel where you can see a whole bunch of training. Heath has posted hours and hours of training on his YouTube channel, which you can consume for free. Once again, big shout out to Heath and the team for supporting my channel. I interviewed Heath, asked him a whole bunch of questions that we received from the community video link below as well. Hey everyone, it's David Bombal back with the amazing Stephen Sims. Stephen, great to have you back on the channel.
Yeah, great to be back, David. I'm glad it hasn't been too long this time.
Yeah, it was too long last time. Just for everyone who hasn't seen our previous videos, I've linked them below. Stephen is like one of the OGs in cybersecurity. He's been doing this stuff for a long, long time. He's also one of the authors of this book, Grey Hat Hacking. But Stephen, I'm really looking forward to this video. We were discussing off camera about, I've seen people talk about the dark web, deep web, all these terms, and I've done lightweight overviews of it, but I'm hoping you can take us deep into the dark web or the deep web, and excuse the puns there.
Yeah, not too deep though.
Yeah. There's some nasty stuff on there, right?
Yeah. It's an interesting place. I mean, it's funny because some people will define the dark web as it's the internet. What do you mean? There's no secret, area. It's just, and also people say assume that everything on the dark net is owned by feds. The federal government. So it's anybody going in there, whether you're going in there for good or bad, has to have good OPSEC. So it's something we're going to talk about for sure.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because I think a lot of people would just think I can just start up Tor and I can connect to this and I'll be okay. But perhaps you can explain, what is Tor? And you mentioned some other operating systems and options offline, like Tails, I believe. So yeah, what is OPSEC? Why is it important? And how do I stay safe? And, what is it actually about?
Yeah, it's a big question, right? I mean, one of the challenges with going onto the dark net is like, a big question people have is, well, how do I find things? How do I know where to look?
Exactly.
And obviously on the clear net, which we call the internet, you can go and find links, and they typically have .onion extensions, right? So you find these onion pages instead of .com, it's .onion. And you never know what's going to come up. So you can't just believe that if you find a .onion address on the ClearNet, which if you click on it, you can't get there. You have to be connected to Tor. And that what's going to be there is actually what it says would be there. I mean, there could be malware, there could be something, illicit images, there could be one of just countless things. And a lot of these sites have a very short lifetime where there might be a .onion site you see on the ClearNet or the darknet, and when you go to it, it's not there anymore. It times out. That could be because of a DOS, because there's lots of people out there DOSing, denial of service on onion sites, depending on what they are. Like markets will attack other markets to try to shut them down. Also, a lot of them will have things like a canary, where a canary, you can kind of think of it as, it's basically like it's like a timer almost, where if the admin of that website, of that onion site, doesn't go in and do a check or reset it or do something, and the canary expires, then it kills the site, because the understanding might be that, well, something might have happened to that admin. Maybe they were arrested and we need to kill things to make it go away as quickly as possible. But if they go in there and refresh it, then it stays up. But again, a lot of them intentionally will only be spawned up, only come alive for a short period of time. And then if you want to get to that same site that you just got to on that prior onion address, it's actually changed to a completely different address now, and you kind of have to know how things are moving around in a lot of cases. Yeah, Whonix and Tails are two of the most popular operating systems used to connect. A good thing about them is, especially like I'm going to be using Whonix today, it's configured in such a way where there's two virtual machines. One of them is kind of like the proxy, and that actually does the connectivity, and the other one's your workstation. So your workstation is actually network configured to go through that proxy VM, which then connects into Tor. And the Tor, from a very high level, they call it the onion routing, right? It's kind of like, imagine a giant mesh. And by mesh, I mean thousands of routers called Tor nodes, and they're all just kind of meshed together, connected to each other. And when your data goes in, it's getting bounced around. So it goes into an entry node, and it gets bounced around all over the place before getting to the destination, to try to make it really difficult to where if you were to get a hold of the entry node that I connected into, it's still not going to be easy for you to know where I went because of all that crazy routing going on. Same thing on the Tor exit node. So a lot of times law enforcement, they want to get access to these nodes because they can see where people are going. And it's another thing where OPSEC comes into place, because if you want to dox somebody and you want to try to figure out, hey, how do I do a HUMINT or OSINT on the darknet? Like, how do I potentially determine who this person is? How can I reverse that back out? We'll talk a little bit about that again as well. But just connecting straight in, the problem is that it's going to be easier for them to track you, them being whoever wants to. I mean, well, definitely you want to use VPN to connect in, usually multi-hop. I'll show you an example of that. But a lot of these VPN providers will tell you that they delete the logs. They don't save the logs, but you never know that, right? And the more, if you're going through multi-hop VPN and not just through a single other location, it makes it just more difficult. If I go through Ecuador and then from Ecuador to Thailand and then into Tor, it's going to, again, add layers of complexity.
So you wouldn't recommend me just installing Tor on my Windows computer or my Mac and then just connecting directly to the dark web that way?
Yeah, I mean, again, I'm speaking from an OPSEC perspective, so I'm not trying to say or teach, hey, if you want to do bad things, this is how you go about doing it. If you truly have no illicit intention going into it, it's just, one, it's not a good look because some people, whether you like it or not, even if you're going onto it for good purposes, some people just truly believe in privacy, right? And they don't think that anybody should be able to track what you're doing, and it's, again, privacy. So, but if you're going in and you're just, again, what your intentions are, like why you're going in, because your ISP will certainly be able to see that your IP address at home connected to into the darknet, so obviously if you're okay with that, not information being available to someone, then it's fine. But again, you still want to worry about, well, who is the owner of that node that I came in on? Because if I'm using my raw IP address, then they can figure out who I am and trace it back. So it's just a lot of considerations.
And why would you choose Whonix rather than Tails, or doesn't it matter? It's just personal preference?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, they're both great operating systems. There's something, it's funny because some people will say, well, how do you have all this knowledge about working on the darknet? You must be doing bad things. And that's not the case at all. Like, we're actually at the SANS Institute, there's a new course that was written specifically on human, and I was sent on the darknet, and that can be used by law enforcement. So in my career, I've absolutely worked directly with law enforcement on different activities. Like, for example, one time I was in Australia, this is a long time ago, but the Australian Federal Police, I think it's the AFP, they were working on a case, and it was, unfortunately, it was a case, and the individuals who were doing that criminal activity were sneaky to where they were hiding illegal inside legal images, meaning of age images. So their assumption was that if law enforcement were to come in and seize and acquire your assets, and they looked at it, they would just see a bunch of age people, which is, again, legal, technically. Who would think that someone used steganography to actually hide an illegal image in a real or a legal image? And that's sneaky, but that's the kind of people you're dealing with. It's easy for law enforcement in many cases to get the low-hanging fruit, people that don't have good OPSEC, but the people who do have good OPSEC, and that's operational security, who really understand privacy and cover their tracks and never get lazy. That's the big one, is people become complacent. Oh, I haven't been caught in 5 years, so I'm just going to be complacent. And then that's where they start getting themselves caught up. But in that particular case, the law enforcement were asking, hey, do you know of any tools that would help us, one, identify if a host file has been steganographically altered? And again, steganography, for those of you who don't know, is when you typically encrypt something that you want to hide, and then you embed it into a host file. And there's different techniques like substitution stego and injection stego and generation stego, but it's all about taking something that you want to hide, encrypting it, and then embedding it into a host file. And that host file can be an MP3 file, it can be a JPEG, it can be pretty much anything that the stego tool was written to support. So what law enforcement was looking for is a way to take these images and scan them to see if there's a signature to indicate that it was steganographically altered, so that they could potentially extract the hidden file out of it. It's still encrypted, but if they can extract it out, then they can use crypto tools to try and crack the password to get in. And there was a tool at the time, I think it's still around, called Stegalizer AS or SS. There's a couple different ones, and it's kind of like a law enforcement grade tool to do that, and they were able to use that, which is pretty cool.
So, I mean, you've been doing this for a while, Stephen, I take it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's obviously cybersecurity and hacking and stuff like that. Vulnerability research is my specialty area, but I've taught and have a background all over the place. And, it's just one of those things where if your expertise can lend a hand to someone working on a good case, then absolutely you want to use your powers for good.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important to emphasize that you've been doing this for a long time, many years. You've got a lot of experience in this field, and you can give a lot of new people tips on how to do it ethically and not get into trouble. So I really appreciate you taking us down this rabbit hole, because it's literally that, right? You can spend so much time going down this. Sorry, go on.
Yeah, and it is questionable. I mean, that's one of the considerations you have to have when going into it is, and that is into the darknet, is that you may, inadvertently stumble across something that you did not want to see. And it doesn't always have to be what I was just describing before. It can also be that you come across a site where people are selling narcotics, come across a site where people are talking about other types of criminal activity, like putting a hit out on someone, right? And there's been plenty of cases there. And it is true that a lot of these marketplaces and sites that you find may be owned by law enforcement of some type or intelligence agency, which makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
If you were working for law enforcement and you could create a marketplace and convince sellers, and we'll take a look at a marketplace when we go onto the darknet here soon, but if you can do that as law enforcement and convince sellers to sell through you, then you're going to start learning a lot about those individuals. Now, even if you do that, it doesn't mean that you're going to be able to figure out who they are, because if they're smart, they're going to use the right cryptocurrency like Monero to try to make it really difficult to detect who they are. There was a marketplace actually where the individual who owned the market was out of somewhere in Asia. I forget exactly which country, but he was back and forth between Asia and the United States. And he created a marketplace specifically for selling illicit drugs and narcotics. And what a lot of these guys do, and I try to be really careful with my words because I have my own choice words I would like to use to describe a lot of these people.
Yeah.
They want to make money, right? You've got these brilliant web developers. A lot of times they're really good at security. They're good OPSEC, and they think, hey, I can work in a 9-to-5 position making $150,000 a year, or I could create a marketplace and use my powers for that, and I can make millions of dollars and retire in a year. So what they do is build these marketplaces. They attract sellers. The sellers go on and they list their products just like on eBay or something. And then buyers go on and they look at the products of all the different sellers. And it's just like going onto an online store. You click what you want. You put it in your shopping cart. You can see the rating system of these individuals because they can obviously make themselves look like a better buyer, someone you trust that actually going to deliver you good products versus somebody that doesn't have any reviews. And you put it into the shopping cart and you buy it. Now, here's where the question comes in. In this particular case that I'm talking about, the owner of the marketplace lied and said, if you enter your clear text data, like let's say I'm buying something from you, David, and you had a storefront, and I have to send you my address, my mailing address, or an address so you can send the product to me. I type my address in, and there's a little thing there, and it says, "Don't worry, like we're encrypting this for you." So we use PGP keys, and you would have uploaded your public key. I would have uploaded my public key, and what it's telling me is that if I type in my mailing address and hit send, that it will use your public key to encrypt my address, so that technically or theoretically the only person that can decrypt that is you, because you're the only one that has your private key. But what they weren't doing is encrypting. They weren't encrypting. So if you were smart about it, and this is a perfect example of OPSEC, never trust someone else that says they're going to encrypt your stuff for you. Instead, I can take your public key, I can encrypt my address, and then anybody in the middle in the marketplace wouldn't be able to decrypt it unless your private key was compromised. So this individual, they did what's called an exit scam, which I'm sure if you were around during the whole crypto boom that happened in the last couple of years, you've heard of rug pulls and exit scams. And in this case, what the marketplace owners do is they'll wait till they build up enough credibility with the community. They'll wait till there's a ton of money in escrow, because that's one of the big things that happens. When you buy something, you put your money into escrow in the market, and the marketplace holds those funds until you send me something, and then I go in and say I received it, or a timer expires. Then the escrow gets released and you get your money. The marketplace might take 10% or so, but that's how they make their money. It makes sense. What they did was waited until there was so much money in escrow, like millions of dollars in escrow, and then they did an exit scam. They took all of that money, all of that crypto, they took it for themselves, and they released the escrow to themselves. Not only that, they came and extorted afterwards. Everybody had known at this point that they did an exit scam, and it was in the news. And they then went and extorted the buyers and the sellers, and they said, hey, all that data that was encrypted that we told you we were encrypting for you, we weren't. It's 100% in clear text. And if you don't pay us $10,000, we're going to release all of this information to law enforcement. And from what the looks of it is lots of people did pay. But the good thing about it is law enforcement got him. He was arrested. I think it was April or May. He was arrested and he's never getting out of prison. There were videos found on him of him on YouTube where he actually did a presentation and wrote a tool that's an anti-denial of service tool for darknet marketplaces. So that was like clearly a direct tie to this individual, because denial of service is a big problem in the darknet.
Yeah, I mean, I'll put some information up on screen for anyone who's interested, but it's a good read actually. I remember reading a bit about this. I mean, I think the joke was, it's one thing to steal from people, but then to like try and get more money out of criminals is definitely not a good idea.
Yeah, I would love to know at what point they knew who he was, because obviously a lot of times law enforcement might know who someone is, but they continue to allow the activity to move forward so that they can collect more and more evidence against to make the conviction even stronger. But I just would love to know exactly when they knew who he was. Like, was it before he tried to extort or after? Or maybe someone who was an admin on his marketplace snitched on him for doing that. Like, who knows what it was? But I just think that's pretty wild. And I'm so glad he got caught.
But it's a cautionary tale, right? That the places that you go on the dark web are not nice places, for lack of a better word. You have to be really careful.
There are some useful resources there, but yeah, for the most part, sadly, from what I've seen, it's not good stuff.
Stephen, we've been talking long enough now. I think a lot of people are going to want to see a demo. So hopefully you can show us like your setup and then show us some places on the dark web and, show us why we have to be careful.
Yeah, for sure. I think we should talk about some OPSEC considerations to begin with and what you should do before you connect in. And then we'll go ahead and connect in and look at some things. I downloaded a fresh copy of Whonix before we did that. I did it yesterday. I actually just put it together so everything was ready. So this is a fresh copy of Whonix. I went in and set a couple things up, so it's going to make things go along a little faster, but I will talk to them. One interesting thing, there's a lot of interesting things, but one is that there's this paper, and it's called the DNM Bible, Darknet Marketplace Bible, and I will show it to you. It's targeting people who are buying illegal items. And then one of the scariest things with that is people buying stuff like narcotics. And that's one of the reasons these marketplaces are horrible, is so many of them have and they're being sold as one thing, but they have something else in them. And obviously there's like thousands and thousands of overdose deaths due to that. So this DNM Bible, it is a really good document for anyone who wants to go under the darknet, as well as law enforcement to understand what people are doing to try to protect themselves. All about OPSEC connectivity and everything else you should factor into consideration. So yeah, let's first talk about a couple basic things. I'm just going to quickly go ahead and show an example of a VPN. I know you all who are listening to this likely know what VPN is, but here's just one example. The only thing I want to show you here is that if you're going to connect in, as David and I were discussing before, you typically don't want to just go straight from your home IP address right to a Tor entry node. You want to use the right operating system. You want to use VPN. And the reason for that is, even if you're not doing things that are against the law, it's not a good look. Some people are going to judge you no matter what if you are going into the darknet, because maybe they don't understand exactly what it's all about. Plus, some of us work on the darknet and try to do things like helping law enforcement with doxing and OPSEC and all of that. When you connect in the Tor entry node, like think about, you're at your house, you've got your wireless access point, you get an IP address from your provider. And that IP address is typically over DHCP, so we don't always have that address, but usually it's for a long time. Like I've had the same IP address for a very long time, even though DHCP is on, because it keeps refreshing it. So it's going to make it pretty easy for the provider, the internet service provider, or anyone else who knows that's my IP address to trace back where I go. So imagine if I were to connect from my house to the next hop, and that next hop might be the ISP router before I go further into the internet. What we're doing here by using VPN is connecting to another location to make it look as if that's my source. So it's going to be harder to trace back. A lot of the VPN providers say that they delete the logs, but we don't know if that's true or not, right? There's no way for us to validate that. Some countries may have laws that say that they're not allowed to do that. So maybe they can do it in some countries, but not in others. This example here is just called Hide-Me VPN. And one of the things you'll want to look at it here. So when you click on locations, you can see that there's all these different country options there. And some of them show that they're better speeds than others. There are some countries known to have more lax hacking laws than other countries. So depending on what you're doing, that could be a consideration. One thing I'd recommend is using multi-hop. Multi-hop means that we are connecting from our home address to another location like Ecuador, and then we hop again. We go from Ecuador over to France, and then from there we go into the Tor entry node. So see how we're making it more and more difficult to trace back, even from outside of the darknet, that tracing it back to me, it's more challenging for folks. So VPN is always a good option. I would definitely recommend, of course, reading up on which VPN providers do in fact claim to delete their logs, and look for good reviews about those providers so people can hopefully somehow validate that. But at the end of the day, you don't really know. But it's just a consideration.
I got to ask you though, your recommended VPN or list of VPNs, or would you prefer not saying?
Yeah, so around recommended is people you trust who have set up their own and not going through a provider. But that's obviously, now it's between you and other people. But if you really do trust these people, you can probably trust them more than you could trust some company that you know nothing about.
Yeah, I like that. I mean, it's there's so much hype on VPNs and so much like false advertising on VPNs. It's hard to know what's actually true.
Right. So I'm going to go ahead now. I'm just going to share my screen and we'll take a look at just the Whonix page and the Tails page. So this page here, this is the Whonix page. I'm specifically looking at the VirtualBox link off of it. You can download, and actually I'll show you that. If we click download, you can see the different operating systems out there that are supported. Sometimes one might be listed, and when you go to click on it, it's not actually available yet. It says they're working on it. What I'm using here, though, is a VirtualBox image for Mac OS. So VirtualBox, you can download that for free. So that's another thing you're going to need is VMware or VirtualBox. I don't think that they make a version for Fusion of Whonix yet, but they do for VirtualBox, and VirtualBox is free. So that's great. Whonix is free. They'd like you to donate it to the project, of course. You can see that up in the top right, but it is a free tool. This one comes in two separate pieces, meaning that you're actually downloading two operating systems, two Linux operating systems when you download it. So you would download the package, and then when you bring up VirtualBox and you go to start up Whonix, there's going to be two operating systems. One's going to be the gateway, and the other one's going to be the workstation itself. The gateway is both are actually already pre-configured and set up for you. And the workstation that you actually are going to be interacting with is communicating through the gateway VM that they provided to you. So all the networking sorted, it's acting like a proxy to you. And on that system, the gateway system, it's already pre-configured to connect to Tor, so to get into the Onion Route network. And you don't have to worry about it, but you still want to do that VPN step first. Tails is another one. I've used Tails before. It should just be a single image, but it's also a very popular and trusted operating system. There are other ones out there, and certainly you can download, you can build your own Linux box and put Tor on it and have that same level of privacy if you know what you're doing. This is the good thing about using one of these operating systems. One of the main things that you need to keep in mind is that they are minimal Linux box. All those noisy, chatty protocols and things that might make it easy for someone to detect you, that's all turned off. All those services are stopped. There's no bloat on it. Only what you need to be able to do things like connecting into Tor is on that system. So it's a lot easier than trying to configure all that stuff yourself from just a random Linux VM.
So Tails is one virtual machine, right? With Whonix, it's two virtual machines that you have to run.
I believe Tails is still one. Yes. I haven't used Tails in a little while. I've been using Whonix for quite a while now.
And so just so that I can understand this, because I'm always a bit slow, your VPN is running on your bare metal operating system, so Mac OS or Windows, and then you're connecting by the VPN, and then you've got these two virtual machines running in VirtualBox, and they are connecting through the VPN onto the dark web.
Yep, exactly. And one thing you just made me think of, I wanted to point out as well, you always want to encrypt the drive that you're storing your Whonix or Tails operating system on. Just because if that gets compromised and someone's able to get onto it, obviously they can mount it and they can see it. So if you encrypt it, and most people put it on an external media, so like some solid state drive with encrypted operating system on there, you have to mount it before you can open it up. Again, it's all about OPSEC. It doesn't mean you're up to no good. It just means that you're following good OPSEC so that you know exactly what someone would be able to find out. Like you could put your very sensitive records on this operating system. And if it's encrypted, you don't have to worry as much about it, right? As long as your passphrase and stuff are pretty strong.
So the encryption that you're using, is that just like part of the like Windows or Mac OS, or are you using something separate to encrypt?
I use external encryption. So a lot of, there used to be stuff like VeraCrypt and all, but then we got told years ago that's not safe anymore. And obviously there are other options out there. A lot of the SSD drives or other types of drives that you buy come with some proprietary encryption. And as long as you've done an assessment of that and you feel that it's a strong encryption option, there's no backdoors in it, then it should be good. It's a layered defense control. You never want to put all your eggs in one basket. You don't want to rely on one defensive capability. You have that. They're each complementary of one another, to where if somebody compromises one layer, they can't do too much damage. Okay, so we just took a look at the operating systems, Whonix and Tails. We talked about VPN. We talked about VirtualBox. We talked about encrypting. So now that all of these items are set up, let's just assume that we are multi-hop VPN'd in now, and we actually want to bring up the operating system and connect in. What I'll show you real quick right now is just what VirtualBox looks like. So this right here, you can see the Whonix gateway and then the Whonix workstation. Yep. And those are the two that I was describing before. So right now, I've got them both powered up. They're running. Obviously, the default passwords and everything are there, and you want to change that stuff. Like the first thing you want to do when you boot this stuff up is go in and change the passwords to something that you'll remember. It's more OPSEC. I'm not going to go over OPSEC to death, but like obviously if it's some unique password and credentials that you're using and you're worried about remembering them, then encrypting those and putting them on some other drive, where if someone were to compromise that drive, they wouldn't be able to recover that stuff. It's all about just, again, covering your tracks, having good OPSEC. But these are the two operating systems. So right now, we're just going to go ahead and jump over to the workstation.
When you import those into VirtualBox, it sets up I think you said it already, but just to confirm, it sets up the bridging and everything, so you don't have to worry about that. You just import them and you're good to go. Is that right?
Right. Everything is set up for you. You don't have to do anything. That's one of the great things about downloading one of these pre-configured operating systems. All right. So what we have now, I've already brought up a command prompt, and over here on the right, we've got a Monero wallet. We're going to talk about Monero in a bit, so that's why that's there. And there's some basic things you want to do. So first thing people want to do is like, I want to go on and start looking around on the darknet. How do I know what to look for? That is a really big question. And you have to assume that anything listed on the ClearNet may be intentionally misleading you. Some of it's going to be correct and accurate. Some of it's not. So there's a bit of risk you're taking on anytime you go to an Onion site. And if you've ever seen an Onion address, they're typically very long strings with a .onion extension. There are some well-known locations where it again doesn't mean it's safe, but it's known that these specific things reside at those locations, and they tend to be more static, meaning it's always there. There's this thing called Dread, which is kind of like Reddit for the darknet. It has all types of criminal activity on it. Not all criminal activity, but a lot of criminal activity. There's whole sections talking about drugs. There's sections talking about hacking, ransomware. There's all these different subreddits, subdreads, I should call it, not subreddits, but subdreads on it. And that's typically at a static location. And that thing I mentioned before called the DNM Bible, that is a document that is all about OPSEC. And we'll take a look at that for a little bit here as well. Because even though it was written by people to clearly, when you look at it, to very carefully do things that if you were to get caught, you would likely be arrested. It's helping those people perform those actions. But because it's all about OPSEC, it's a really useful tool for anyone who wanting to understand OPSEC. So what I'm going to do is bring up the Tor browser, and right up here at the top, you could see a little tiny icon. I'm just going to click on that. That's the Tor browser. And here it is. So I put some yesterday when I downloaded this, I got some links ready. So that way, again, we move along a little bit faster. But you can see one of the things there is Introduction DNM Bible. We're going to click on that in a moment. One thing that you typically want to do, so me being a vulnerability researcher, browsers getting compromised most often has been the result of JavaScript vulnerabilities. USAPT free and type confusion bugs. It's all that interface of JavaScript to C++ libraries underneath. And so disabling JavaScript is typically one of the first things you want to do, because you're going to these sites that are oftentimes not very friendly. And obviously, if they can
Yeah.
get JavaScript to execute, they're going to try and do anything from scraping your box and trying to steal your crypto coins to who knows what else, right? To installing crypto
Yep.
miners on you. So if you go up to the URL and you type about:config, this takes you to this page that says proceed with caution, accept the risk. And in here, I'm just going to type in JavaScript. And you notice JavaScript.enabled is false. That's because I changed that from the default. That's why you've got that little back arrow over to the far right to reset it. Disabling JavaScript, and there might be more than just this location where you want to make JavaScript changes. So again, if someone's trying to exploit your browser, this is reducing the attack surface of that browser significantly. And actually, some sites that you go on will say you can't come here because you have JavaScript enabled on your browser. So you have to go and turn it off. So that might be something, depending on what you're trying to do, you have to turn it on and off at times. But right now I'm going to click on this link for the DNM Bible. This is a very well put together document, as I've said many times, all about OPSEC. So see how it's quite slow right now? That's a common thing when visiting Onion sites because of all the latency introduced via VPN and all the routing around. Again, there's a lot of times denial of service attacks going on. The denial of service attacks, no one knows typically who they really are. A lot of times it's one marketplace attacking another marketplace to try to knock them offline. You can see we just failed here. But to try to knock one offline so that they get more business, sometimes it might be law enforcement or political activists who are out there trying to take down an Onion site. So you never know what the reason or purpose is. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to try a couple other sites. And if those sites don't work as well, I might have to reset the VM so we can connect back in because sometimes things happen. So let me click on this darknet link directory and see if this gets us anywhere. Okay, so we just connected in. Like I said, it can take a while for various reasons. This is the DNM Bible. So you can see at the top, it says, hello, welcome to the Darknet Markets Bible for buyers. So it's targeting people who want to buy things through the darknet that are typically illegal. So it wasn't written for a good reason, good purposes. But again, it orients itself on OPSEC best practices. So that is something that anyone can learn from. Someone who just wants better OPSEC in general from a security perspective to law enforcement or intelligence, trying to understand how people go about trying to hide what they're doing. Because the better you understand all of the OPSEC techniques that someone may take into account when they're doing something, the more you can look for gaps or opportunities, because people do become complacent after they've been getting away things for a while. And that's what a lot of times we count on, is that someone makes a mistake. Well, I've seen people get doxxed before on the darknet to the clearnet by doing something as simple as using an old Xbox gamer tag from 10 years ago as a username on a marketplace on the darknet. And that connection right there, bam, they got you, right? I mean, that might not be enough to prosecute, but they probably have a good idea that it's probably you. And they can go and start doing more investigation. They've narrowed that down now. So those little details, never reusing the same usernames and watching how you speak. I've seen it also where someone who talks a certain way and just their grammar, that allowing that you to be mapped back to someone else. There's all kinds of ways that it can be done. So the better you do your OPSEC, the more likely it's going to be, or the more difficult it's going to be for someone to be able to determine who you might be.
So I was just going to say this for everyone watching. We do not advocate doing anything illegal. This is for educational purposes only. And, stay on the right side. Learn these things to look after your privacy, but only do the right things. Like Stephen, you're a great example of that. You've got all this knowledge. You could do it for bad, but you do it for good.
Yeah, exactly. It's the same thing with malware dev and exploit development. You can use your powers for good, or you can use your powers for bad reasons. As the unfortunate thing, well, I don't know if it's unfortunate, but you have to think the same way. To be a good pen tester, good red teamer, you have to emulate adversaries. So you really need to understand the way they go about doing things, the things that they do, so that you can truly emulate them and uncover the same types of opportunities that they would if they were attacking you. So absolutely. But you can see here it's broken up into a bunch of sections. We're not going to go through the whole thing, but the operating system, it's going to tell you stuff about Tails and Whonix right there, and cubes, Whonix on cubes. So some of the things we're already talking about. I'm going to click on PGP because this is an important one where if you don't understand cryptography very well, it's something that you need to get proficient at. And it doesn't have to be advanced. It has to be to the level of, can you explain what asymmetric crypto is and how it works. Like, how would a Diffie-Hellman key exchange work? Meaning to the level of, if David gives me his public key, I can encrypt something with that public key, and only David's private key can decrypt that. And vice versa. If he encrypts something with his private key, which you almost never do, anyone can decrypt that with his public key, which is out there in the world potentially. The only time you typically use your private key to encrypt something is when you're doing digital signatures, like things like non-repudiation, where if I take a message and I want to be able to prove to David, or he wants to be able to validate that the integrity of that message is intact, I would take a hash of that message I want to send David. I would encrypt the hash with my private key and then send the encrypted document that was encrypted with David's public key to him. He would decrypt it with his private key. Then he would take my public key, decrypt the hash of the message, run the hash algorithm against his decrypted copy of the message. And if those two things map, we've got integrity, right? So that level of encryption is what it's important to understand, because
a lot of people misunderstand that. Yeah, sorry,
it's easy to get confused because there's symmetric key cryptography and asymmetric key cryptography. Actually, that might be a good video sometime talking about crypto.
Yeah, I think we should do it. Yeah.
But symmetric key cryptography is a single key system. We encrypt and decrypt with the same key. Asymmetric key cryptography is a two key system. And we'll get into that sometime. But just make sure you understand cryptography. And we're going to be using, I'll show you some examples today. We're probably going to be forced to use cryptography coming up here soon, because some of the marketplaces require that you are doing that. You have to give them your public key that you generate. They'll encrypt something with your public key. They want to prove that it's you by you showing them that you were able to decrypt that message with your private key, that you are the owner of that key pair. So we'll get into that a little bit more. But this does get into some pretty good details on encryption and does teach you. It goes through the steps of creating a key pair, importing a public key. I'm going to demonstrate this stuff for you, though. So that's, I don't think we're going to spend any more time here on the Darknet Marketplace Bible, but you can see kind of what this document is and why it's important. It even gets into cryptocurrencies and which ones are safer than the others. Monero is always the answer. Monero is the safer choice for purchasing something using crypto without it being easily mapped back to who it is. It's if someone's able to determine who bought something using Monero, it's because that person had poor OPSEC. Like, you never would buy something from your Monero wallet in a crypto marketplace. You would download it to a cold storage wallet and you would use that, and you would generate new Monero addresses for each transaction. Like, that's the type of OPSEC stuff that people are doing to make it more difficult to trace things back to them. And when it gets into things like shipping, it's crazy to read. If you go and read through that, it's on your own time. It's an interesting read because it's talking to people about how to use what's it called, a dead drop or something like that.
Dead drop, yeah.
You can use like an abandoned house down the road and you get it shipped there, and like you go pick it up, and how to what not to do, what to do. It's quite interesting to read, but that's not useful to us right now. All right, so the next thing let's take a look at is going to be Dread. And let me see if it takes us here. All right, great. So we're in the Dread access queue. It says your estimated wait time is less than 3 minutes. One thing I'll tell you, I don't think Dread has one, but some of the hardest captchas you've ever seen in your life are on these websites. You'll see some, I imagine, coming up here soon. They can be frustratingly annoying.
And that's just to prove that you're human, right?
Yep. Because they're trying to prevent against denial of service attacks. Exactly.
Yeah.
So here's Dread. So this is the Dread marketplace, and or not marketplace, but the Dread forums. This is similar to Reddit, as I said before. If you look over onto the right, there's some suggestions, and you can see darknet markets, harm reduction, noobs, OPSEC, Monero, Recon. But there's also, that's not all of them. There are a ton of them. There are ones specifically on hacking, so you can go into that location, ransomware, all kinds of different types of criminal activity surrounding different areas in life. This is one of the main places where I believe people go to get the onion addresses of certain things they're looking for. So for example, if you click on this Darknet Markets link, that's going to be a lot of different marketplaces. And remember, a marketplace is just a website that allows sellers to sign up. They have to be vetted by the owner of the marketplace, allows the sellers to sign up, and then they get their own storefronts, just like on any regular internet site. And then buyers can go on and create accounts and buy things from these sellers. There's rating systems and all that. There's escrow, all that stuff's included. But there's also a lot of things around like data breaches and other things that you can find on here. I said earlier, one of the big questions is, well, how do I know what sites are the legitimate sites that I'm trying to get to? And at the end of the day, it comes down to who do you trust. Dread is known, I believe, not to be compromised. So people do trust Dread. There's millions of users on Dread, which is kind of scary in its own right. Like if you click on, if you look at here, Darknet Markets, there's 131,787 subscribers. That's a lot. So we could type something up here in a search bar. Like if I type ransomware, let's see what comes up. So we got 3,600 results. And these are all just going to be forums of people talking like how to spread your malware. Look at that. I mean, and in Dread hacking. So it's in a hacking forum, game cracks, software cracks, gambling bots, cracking tools. I mean, you'll never run out of stuff to read on here. There's a lot of articles about different people who got caught and were arrested for different things. Why not just create a good working ransomware? A lot of people are asking, like this guy here, if you can see it, it says, I will create a custom ransomware. So a lot of these people might be scammers though. So if that's somebody, let's say I wanted to write ransomware and I wanted to sell it to you so you could go do bad things and steal money from people, I could scam you. I could tell you, hey, I'm a good developer. I'll show you some proof. And then, send me the money and I'll send you the ransomware. And I just never send it to you. So scammers happens all the time. But a lot of times, in fact, there are people who are selling. There's a thing called ransomware as a service. And it's been all over the darknet for many, like over 10 years now. There are these developers who write ransomware, typically in something like C#.net or whatever. And what you can do is simply instantiate an instance of that ransomware and you can customize it. So you go onto the website, you message with the owner of the ransomware who made it. And what they'll do is they'll take a percentage of each person's system you infect who does in fact pay. So they may take 20, 30%. You get the other 70, 80% to go to your wallet for every victim who actually pays the ransom. And they'll let you use your own wallet addresses. You can obviously customize what you want the ransomware to say. And then it's your job to be the mule and go out and try to infect systems. Meanwhile, the ransomware as a service developer just collects the income from that. So that's been a well-known thing for a long time now. So I'm just going to click on Dread hacking to see what kind of topics people are talking about in here right now. So you're going to see a lot of stolen courses and books and things like that because people just think everything should be that way on the dark net. So ebooks to learn cybersecurity. Let's see here, full courses. You go on there, you see all kinds of courses from different providers, and it can be frustrating. If you're somebody who went through the trouble of writing a course, because people will say, well, information's free out there. Everything should be free. Yeah, all this stuff is free. You could learn enough to become a doctor with online materials, but when someone takes the time to go through and put together material and curate it in such a way and explain it and write labs, that's a huge undertaking. I've written books and courses, and it's months and months and months of work. Yep. So going and stealing that is not a great thing.
Interesting. Flipper Zero even made it, yeah.
Yeah, Flipper Zero. Actually, I'm not joking. Mm-hmm. I saw your name on here, David.
Oh, did you?
Just yesterday. Yeah, but you can see things, how to get access to CCTV. So a lot of it's just people up to no good, fuel cards, just stealing different things, how to steal Udemy courses, need hacker form to hire a hacker, like all kinds of good stuff. But yeah, I saw your name yesterday and I didn't even search for it, but let's check this out. Oh, you got a lot of results. Well, let's see if it's, all right, let me do a search. What video? David Bumble? See that?
You went a bit quick. I missed that. Say that again.
Right there. It's just,
oh, there we go.
I said, what video? David Bumble? Like it's the funny thing is your name will be all through here. Let's see. Just
That's
one
hilarious.
on that page. But I saw it pop up in a couple spots. It was pretty funny. I was like, hey, I should show David.
That'd be great. Well, so I was going to say, it's interesting, right? But I mean, that's what comes with the territory of creating YouTube videos, right? Your name goes out there and people watch your videos. So it's expected.
Exactly. There's this thing called the Darknet Link Directory. And this right here, if I remember correctly, is all the valid links to different marketplace and other sites on the darknet. So as I said before, some sites are going to be static because they want them to be static. What ends up happening, though, is a lot of this stuff gets denial of service attacks against it. So a lot of markets or a lot of sites in general in the darknet will create custom links for their users because the main links will be targeted for attacks. So these developers are some of the best you can find. The clever ways in which they come up to stop and prevent DOS attacks from working and other attacks, it's pretty wild. But like here, if we go on to, okay, let's try going on to a site, and there's a few other things I want to show you as well. I'm not sure which one. So some of these sites are going to be purely selling narcotics. Other ones are going to be selling hacker tools and malware and narcotics. I've not found one that just sells hacker tools. A lot of times what happens is people are using Telegram to communicate different onion sites to go to, or ways you can get in contact with people who have access to data breach data and they want to sell it to you. But let's go ahead and let's check one out here. I'm going to click on, all right. So we go to Abacus. Abacus is a marketplace, and you can see we've got like 9 links here to choose from because a lot of times one won't work. So I'm going to actually click on 2 different links in hopes that one of them works. So you can see they'll hang here. Sometimes they'll time out. Sometimes they'll come up. A lot of times things will come up and it looks like it's working, but it resets and resets and resets. Other times you get to go right in. Like this one says onion site not found, which probably isn't true. They probably took it down. There you can see the other one said the same thing. So let's go back and try a couple different ones and hope that one of them works. And if one of them doesn't work, we'll go to a different marketplace. But again, what happens for people who are regular customers, they get their own custom links that are supposed to not go down. I don't have those, so we can't go to them. Is this actually working? No, not yet. Let's try a different one. I'm not sure why that separated off. That site was not found either, unfortunately. We'll give a couple more tries, and if this one doesn't work, we'll go to a different marketplace. What I'm hoping to show you is, I'm not sure about this one, but sometimes the captchas and things like that can be quite challenging, as I mentioned before. This one looks like it's having some trouble. So I'm going to go try a different marketplace while that one's still trying to load. Sure. We just got onto this one. So here's an example where you get into captchas, okay? So it says click into the circle with a cut. And you see these circles on here. Well, the only one with a cut looks to be that one nested in the other one, which is going to be try to hard to click on. You also see some PGP key data up here. It's going to be the signature, so you can go validate that the market is in fact not a clone. So I guess we clicked on the right one, and now we get into this login page. So welcome to a place dedicated to the market, idea exchange. So I got to create an account. I don't have one, so let's go there. So here is where we need to get GPG or PGP because it's asking for our public key. Because again, it wants to validate that it's us each time we're logging in. So we need to bring up GPA is what I'm going to use because I think it's going to be easier for folks watching. So I'll type GPA. That's a GNU Privacy Advisor. So here I do have one key on here that I created yesterday, but I'll just show you the process really quickly. So if we want to create a new key, because what it wants us to give it is our public key. So I'm just going to go in here and we'll say create a new key. My name, I'll just call it derp. Typically what people use like a Proton mail address or something for privacy. Create a backup copy, sure. Passphrase. So this is the passphrase to protect our key. This is what gives us access to the key pair. So of course you want this to be strong. I don't care right now, so I'm just making it short. All right, so now it's asking where I want to save the backup. So I'll save that. What's the passphrase that we just created? Copy secret key has been made to this file. So that's something we'd want to protect, right? It's a copy of our secret key stored on the file system now. Yeah. So it's something to consider. So now that the key's been created, we've got this one for derp. I'm going to go ahead and say I would like to export my public key. I'm going to call it in a file called derp.key. Select the folder, user. Okay, now that key has been exported. So over on the command prompt here, I'm going to say cat derp.key. This is my public key now that I would give to the marketplace. So that's just a generation of a key pair. Copy that. Now we're going to go in here and we paste that key in. And now it's asking me for a display name. I'm just putting Mr. Derp because I don't want it to collide with someone else's account. So I'm just creating something I think that. No, it's not my real password. Solid Snake. We'll try that. 1111. It's a perfect one. Referral. I'll put you down, David. I think David told me to come here. All right, so let's see if I did everything right. It says, welcome to the market. Okay, now what does it want me to do? PGP decrypted message. So now it's encrypted something with my public key that it wants me to read. So I'm going to go and grab this and copy that here. I'm going to go back out to GPA. So now I want to view what's in my clipboard. So I'm going to paste this in. And I'll say decrypt, and it wants my passphrase. And now we got our message from the market. So this might be a little small, but it says how to sign up. Copy the URL from above. That's this URL here, and you can see it's a .onion site. So I'm going to copy that and then copy it, browse to that location. It gives me a signature again if I want to validate the signature of the site. So now I should be able to go over here, paste that site in, and we say go. And I'm hoping it's going to take me into the login page now, if I did everything right. Okay, now another CAPTCHA. Read the whole image. Compare every URL on the image this page with the URL inside your browser bar. Click on your display name showed. So it wants me to click on my display name, which is Mr. Derp Derp right there. So we click on that one. And now it wants me to do another one. This is your XMR. Oh, okay. So it's giving me an XMR deposit address. So if I want to buy something from this market, this is the address that I would send those funds to. And in fact, let me start up Monero so that we can take a look at that as well. So this Monero wallet software is not something, I don't believe it comes with Whonix. It might, but I had to download this and install it to get it to work. And what you have to do is when you start it up, there's a Monero daemon that starts. This is the client wallet GUI. And you can see down at the bottom left, it says connecting, and now it says synchronizing. So it's synchronizing to the blockchain, the Monero blockchain. And if you have a local copy, it's considered safer, but I'm connected to a remote Tor node, which means that it decreases my privacy just a little bit. If that is a node that's owned by an adversary or someone who wants to try to dox me, it gives them a little bit of information about the transaction. It's still not that they can't still just trace it back to me and find out who I am, but it does give them a little bit of power, and they can do certain types of an attack where they can kill my transaction and make me redo it to try to like reuse some of the key stuff. And there's other Monero attacks you can read about. It's always safer to have your own Monero node, but that's many, many, many gigabytes of data that you have to constantly maintain. So once it synchronizes the wallet and we're all caught up to speed with the blockchain, then we'd be able to go in and say send. And that address that it's giving me in the marketplace is what I would paste right here in the address. And then you'd send that amount. And as long as you have enough money in your wallet, obviously the transaction goes through. To get money into this wallet, though, you would have to go and transfer Monero to this wallet. All right, so now we were able to get into the market. And you can also hear over on the left, when we look at Monero, that our wallet is synchronized. Again, this means that we're synchronized to the blockchain. We're currently up to date so that we're permitted to do transactions. And that address that you saw come up a moment ago was the address, my wallet address in the marketplace. So if I wanted to transfer money there, I could send money from this wallet here. So if we wanted to receive money, obviously we can scan that QR code, or we can take the literal address that's right there on the screen. And that's where if I want someone to make a payment to me, that's the wallet that they would use, the address that they would use. And then from there, of course, I can make payments from this wallet. You can also create as many new addresses as you want. So if I say create new address, I can give it a name and say, temp for September. And now I've got a wallet for September if I want to use it for that. And then I maybe stop using it after this month. So a lot of people with different transactions, depending what they'll do, is change the wallet address each time. But anytime someone sends money to these two wallets now, that money now belongs to me. That crypto now belongs to me. So there's a lot of people out there who will create thousands and thousands of wallets and just like put them all over the place whenever they're doing things, just in the hope that someone sends them some random money, which I believe it's worked in some cases. But either way, we now have a wallet address in the market. If we wanted to send money, we've got a wallet locally on our system if we want to receive money and then make payments from there or whatever we want to do. Back over on the marketplace, you can see it says at the top, it says you can get a private mirror here. That's what I was explaining earlier, where you saw that it was hanging for quite a while when we tried to get to some of the marketplaces because they just go down sometimes. So this would be a site that's much more reliable because it's my own personal mirror if I wanted that. And then here we can click on marketplace. Now, when we click on this is where you're going to start seeing things that, for sale, but it's not going to be anything besides drugs and stuff like that. But you can see right away some things come up on the screen, which is pretty crazy. Over on the left, I was hoping that this would be one of the ones that has a category for hacking, but this one looks like it's purely for only substances. Maybe I'll click on other and see if there's anything there, but we might have to try a different market. Yeah, so let's leave that market. Unfortunately, that wasn't one of the good ones here. By good, I mean has juicy hacking tools and things for sale. So let's go over to a different one. I think we tried R-Type, right? Whatever that is. That's one we just were on. We tried one other one earlier and we were able to connect. I think it was Abacus with 9 links. Let's try that one again because I think I remember that one potentially having some malware for sale or things like that. So I'm going to try connecting to a couple of them. If we can get into any of them, yeah, they're not working so far. Just going to go try each one. Oh, there we go. We got into a queue. All right, so now it's saying wait while you're redirected, wait time 30 seconds. So hopefully this one will let us in. Oh, some of them can hang. While that's going on and we're waiting for it though, let me show you something else here. This is an example of a leaks site, if it lets us into it. So this is stuff, you might find it in other onions, you might find it on Telegram or even on the ClearNet, but it's an onion site where they're posting breach data. And sometimes you can see some quite interesting stuff. I don't really want to display anything that people wouldn't want displayed, but probably the link's just going to be a little bit more information about that particular breach. And then sometimes there's a pointer to a dump. Like, yeah, I'm not going to go down any lower on that. Clearly that's somebody's passport or something, but...
So this is like where they've been hacked and the data's just been dropped or posted online, right?
Yeah. So what happens a lot of times is someone will breach a company and then they'll threaten that company that if they don't make a payment to them, that they're going to disclose the stuff publicly. And the ones that don't make payment, they usually put them up here and they call it things like the wall of shame, which they're the ones that should be shameful. But so here's an example of download links. This one has, let me see if this takes us to anything. What I'm hoping for is a directory listing of a bunch of things. Yeah, like this right here. So on this site, it's clearly some compromised company's data, and you could go in here to these different locations. You could see HR, finance, marketing, and a lot of times there'll be download links to just tons and tons of data. So here, I'm not going to click on any of these, but you can see that some company's been compromised. But that's just an example of a leak site, and there's tons of these leak sites out there. All right, while we're waiting for Abacus, let's try another one.
It's a problem with data breaches, right? Because it's like you can assume these days that your data's out there because it just happens all the time.
Yeah, yes, absolutely. And I'll show you, when we finish up with the marketplaces, I'll show you an example of what actually is out there because it's kind of scary.
Yeah.
Oh, there we are. It finally let us in. So select all images containing a stare. I have a feeling that's not going to be the end of the Captcha game on this site, but we'll see. All right, log into Abacus Market. So we need to create an account. Here's another one where it's tough to tell if it's correct. I wouldn't have the patience to use these markets. Like, could you imagine if eBay or like the real websites work this way? It was so difficult to get in.
I was just thinking, man, you must be really, really want something or be really desperate if you go through all of this.
It's interesting though that it forces the multi-factor encryption. I think that's kind of cool. Okay, so here's it says mnemonic. So what's this? To copy this mnemonic. A lot of times there's mnemonics like this to make it so you can be able to recover your access to the market if you lose something. Like you lock yourself out of the account, for example. Oh, wow. Another test. So this one says the URL in the image has 2 missing characters. You must find those 2 missing characters in your browser and write them on the input text. So I think I need to take all these letters that the arrows are pointing to, including the missing ones from the URL. That's a good one. I haven't seen that one before.
Wow.
Oh, wow. We're in. Okay. All that work. Now let's see if there's something besides just substances on here. There we go. So this has got some different stuff. So we've got drugs and chemicals, counterfeit items, digital products, fraud, guides and tutorials, jewels and gold, carded items, software and malware. Let's try that one. That other market that we were on is very targeted. So we got botnets and malware, exploits, exploit kits, security software, and other. I mean, a lot of this stuff I would imagine is junk. I have bought a little bit of malware before from a site so that I could go and take a look at it and do some reversing on it. I've also bought stolen courseware before so I can go in and see if there's any watermarking or things that we can do to try to trace things back. But I've never bought an exploit, but I can't imagine that a marketplace would be where someone who has a 0-day would be selling an exploit. I typically see that stuff through Telegram, and then you'd have to go into the potentially on to the darknet or Monero and stuff like that to make the transaction, or just stay on Telegram. There's a lot of scammers out there. But overall, the whole point is, again, we started off looking at what you need to be able to connect into the darknet, like Whonix or Tails. We talked about VPN, downloading VirtualBox or some other type of virtualization tool to run the operating system. We talked about encrypting our drive, using VPN, and that's all just to get yourself to the point where you're ready to connect. And then when you connect in, we took a look at things like the Tor browser and disabling JavaScript, and then other considerations. We looked at the Darknet Bible, which tells you all about OPSEC, how to learn about cryptography and other things you should care about. We looked at Dread, which is like the Reddit for the Darknet. We saw that there's hacking forums, drug forums, and other things. We looked at some example of a breach wall of shame site that they had up there, and then just a couple of marketplaces here. The last thing I want to do, I think, is after we finish looking at a couple examples on this marketplace, is take a look at Telegram, at some of the locations on Telegram where data is getting pulled and mined. If you, I think you remember our last stream, we looked at darkweb informer, I believe we did, but darkweb informer is a Twitter account or an X account that gets all its information from certain Telegram groups and posts them up on as tweets so that companies can learn about what type of breach data is being sold out there. But we'll take a look specifically at the Telegram forums. So here we've got no, it's the same stuff as we saw before, so nothing new. Bypass antivirus. Yeah, this is all junk. I would imagine that there might be some ransomware for sale on here. Let's take a look real quick. Software and malware. Botnets and malware. Let's try botnets and malware. Maybe there's ransomware on that page, because this is where I've seen like ransomware as a service before. So just doing a quick search for the keyword ransomware to see if this market has anything for sale. But you can see up there too in the top left, I know it's kind of small. Let me zoom in a little bit. It says my trust level is 1. I don't know if you can see that there.
Yeah.
But that is typically a market will have a scoring system where the more as you as a buyer buy, you're going to get your trust level up. So that way certain sellers who don't want to sell to people who they think might be law enforcement, they won't sell to you. And it's the same thing the other way around, where if you look at these sellers, like this one says, it's a botnets and malware sold by Los Santos, and feedback is 95% level 4. So that's just like on eBay or something where you're getting a score showing how trustworthy you are. Yeah, so at the last second there, it did pop up with some ransomware results. Let me zoom in a bit, and you can see best ransomware ever, 100% undetectable plus tutorial. Let's take a look at this one. But there are some results that came up. We got 13 results on that query. So hopefully this comes up pretty quickly. One of the many problems with buying something like this, the ransomware that I've seen for sale, unless it's ransomware as a service done by someone legit, it's just like very simple ransomware where the key management's stored inside of it. It's not very well hidden. It's like cheap ransomware, because anybody can write ransomware in many different languages. And then you go infect the system and you put your wallet address in there. And then you would actually have to do email communication. So you'd have to update the ransomware to say, your system's been compromised. Your files are encrypted. If you want them back, send an email to whatever, that Proton mail, and I will give you my Monero wallet or my Bitcoin wallet, and you send money, and then I'll send you the key. So it's like you'd have to actively monitor the mailbox, and it's not nearly as clean as some of the other ransomware out there. But this one, if I zoom in, we're not going to read through all this, but what does it say? 100% undetectable. That seems like a lie. Oh, price is $55 US. After 10 sales, it'll be up to $1,500. So I guess we still have time to get it for $55 US. But here it is, like uses AES algorithm, sends encryption key to a server. So maybe this one does a bit better job on the encryption. Encrypted files can be decrypted in decryptor program with an encryption key, small file size, not detectable by any antivirus. I'm sure that's the case. 2020. Well, this is old ransomware, but just an example of some of the stuff for sale. I'm going to jump out here now, and we're going to share Telegram. All right, so this is the generic Telegram account I just created yesterday, just so we could take a look at some things. But you can see some different channels that I've joined over here, and this is intentional. Some of these, like 5 Families, is a relatively newer channel that has been listed, and it's very active. As you can see, there's postings from like yesterday on it. But what this is, so let's see here, 4 different ransomware website data. So this is breach data, 100 plus gigabytes blog link. So here they want you to use TOX, which is a protocol, Tor protocol for communication, encrypted communication and video, where you can obviously communicate with them and get access to the full breach data. What they do show you are samples of the data. I'm not going to click on that to expose anything, but they show you samples like, hey, here's an example of what you're going to get. And they show you how many records that they got. And if you go back up higher, it's probably going to be just more and more stuff for sale. Like, what is this? Oh, it's a ransomware as a service for $1,500, C2 dashboard for it, written in Go. So this is like, because it's easier to update this stuff as it is than it is to go into darknet marketplaces. Marketplaces tend not to be a great place to buy hacking tools or exploits or ransomware. It's typically Telegram. A lot of times, though, they will send you to an onion site, or you'll use some kind of a protocol to communicate with them. but you can see more examples of stuff for sale. This one here is latest CVE 0-day exploit. And if we look at the timestamps, this is from today, or even tomorrow, I guess, whatever country that's coming out of. A lot of times these are exploits that are for sale generically. So it's not someone looking for one buyer of a big binary exploit package for like $1 million. A lot of these are like commoditized or just ones that you can buy. It's a well-known command injection tactic against a website, and while it works, you can get access to the way it works by paying us a little bit of money here. But this one's dedicated more to CVEs and 0 days. And then this one up here, this one is pretty interesting. People are literally just selling constantly on this one. Let's see some examples here. I will buy database with phone numbers, email, and other data. Need databases from USA. So a lot of times these are scammer sites, often out of India and other locations where a lot of scam comes from when it comes to tricking somebody into thinking that their account was sent money that they weren't supposed to have, or tricking somebody into thinking their system's infected and trying to walk them through uninstalling the bad software, but they want payment and go buy us gift cards. Not picking on any one particular country by bringing up India. It's just that a lot of those scammer payback YouTube channels and things like that, out of a lot of the attacks are coming from Kolkata and places like that in India, where it's just been known to have a lot of those offices. So this person's saying they need a sample card, Luxembourg homeowner. So this is both buyers and sellers saying what they want and what they have. I was hoping for an onion link or two, but I don't see any, because a lot of times they'll give you an onion link and then you go to the onion link and it's a sample of the data. You can see kind of how big some of these files are that are for sale. But sadly, these are companies and companies and companies compromised. And oftentimes they'll say stuff like, the person didn't pay us, so we're just going to post it online anyway. But it's a good spot to like look for your company to see if it's ever been compromised. So let's go back out here. That's Breach Marketplace, ransomware channel. This is specific for the Stormus ransomware channel, but more stuff for sale.
Just amazing how much is out there, right?
Yeah. This one, what is this, LinkedIn breach data? And this is free. It's 86 gigs. Just there's the password and you can just download it and take a look. Obviously, it could be malware that you're downloading, but look at all this breach data. It's just tons and tons of stuff being given away. Twitter breach data, Raid Chat breach data. And if we go out to, let me break out of here for a second. So here on Twitter or on X, you could see that darkweb informer is the account I was talking about before. Yeah. And this data is just being pulled straight from those different Telegram channels. So it's just letting people on the ClearNet know, hey, this stuff's available for sale right now. Like threat hackers allegedly leaked the database of Bookgenville, whatever that is, and 07 group. So a lot of times these groups like 07 group, you can go onto Telegram and join their channel. Some channels are private, obviously, and that's where sometimes you can get the really good stuff. Just more examples. This is just constant, though. This is every day, every hour. There's tweets coming out from different companies being compromised and their data being available. Like a threat actor is allegedly selling data from KFC in Mexico, like Kentucky Fried Chicken. So it's constant. And some verticals like healthcare end up getting compromised more often just based on a lot of the archaic systems and things in those environments.
It's worrying, man. It's always the question, what do you do about it? What can you do about it?
Yeah. And not only that, this stuff's for sale, but also we didn't go and look at it. So there's one thing people ask a lot of times about going into the darknet. Like, I don't want to inadvertently see something horrible. And we all know what I mean when I say horrible. Yep. It's actually you have to go looking for that stuff. I mean, you may stumble upon a certain onion site that is supposed to be a market and you might see something, but it's actually pretty hard. Like, you have to go looking for that stuff if you want to see those things. And it's similar thing with the more obscure kind of things for sale, like Slack access to someone's workspace in a company. Those are more timely type things. So I often see those on Telegram, but then also on the darknet as well, and certain onion sites. But a lot of them are private groups, and you can't just go find them, and not just anyone can go there. But those are very, very timely on ways to get into an organization where someone has current access into their Slack workspace. Because if you can get access to someone's account at their company Slack workspace, social engineering becomes a lot easier now, because then, of course, they believe that you are that person who's trusted on the inside. But just countless things are for sale. One last thing I'll say, I know we're jumping to something else, but this is a Bitcoin Explorer. So a lot of the cryptos, there's some that are proof of work, some that are proof of concept. Some of them require, obviously, CPU and solving cryptographic problems and hashes. Other ones are proof of stake. I'm a proof of stake, proof of work. So proof of stake versus proof of work. proof of stake does not tax down processors and stuff. You're not solving cryptographic problems to mine crypto, as where proof of work you are. But that's besides the point. Here is an example of Bitcoin blockchain where you can actually watch the transactions that are happening in real time. Like here you can see that there was 43,000 US dollars sent. Down here is 6,000, $290,000. So sometimes really small amounts, like right here, 270, sometimes bigger ones. My point of bringing this up, though, is that you, with this and any kind of blockchain explorer for Bitcoin, you can see the sender's wallet and the recipient's wallet. And anytime that person goes to obviously take money out of that wallet and convert it over into some currency, that's easy to trace unless they're able to use different like coin joins or swapping protocols and things to try to hide themselves. But with Monero, you can't do this. You can't just go there and see the source and destination wallets and all that clearly, which is why a lot of countries try to put policies out there or whatever that to say that you can't use Monero, or they try to govern certain marketplaces so that they're not allowed to sell Monero for this very reason, because it does really increase the privacy and difficulty in being able to figure out who is responsible for a transaction.
I think a lot of people are under the misconception that cryptocurrency is anonymous, but it's not at all, right? Like Bitcoin.
No, it's not. If you go and read, I can't think of a good site off the top of my head, but if you Google something like recent darknet arrests or something like that, you'll see a lot of articles come up from the FBI website and other locations and DEA. And a lot of times they will give details as to how the person got caught. And it's usually due to just, again, going back to poor OPSEC, like going to the same mailbox and using that to send shipment of illicit goods over and over again. People start to see you, and going to a bank or some kind of a store that actually allows you to transfer the wallet, money from out of your Bitcoin wallet over to cash, and they're going to have limitations on how much you can do per day. And if somebody walks in there and I've got $800,000 in Bitcoin that I would like to convert over to cash, those things they stick out,
Yeah.
And it's just easier to tie it to the person that way, because they're going to require your identification and things like that.
So Stephen, this is fantastic, but let me ask some like beginner questions just to make sure we tie it all up. So once I've got Tails or whatever I'm going to be using to installed, and I want to connect somewhere, I need that address, right? That's always the hard part. Like, where do I actually go? So like, how do I get Dred's address? Like, how do I know what that long address is?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think we talked briefly about that, where the DNM Bible, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I would imagine that has Dred's website in there, but like a lot of those websites end up being static. Like those are some of the only ones that are static because people want to be able to trust that it's the real website. So I can't think of any off the top of my head place where, hey, you're going to get legit websites for the darknet at this location, and what's going to be there is definitely what's supposed to be there. Yeah. But a lot of times it's kind of like reaching a consensus where if I find what I think is supposed to be an address for Dred, Google that address and see if it pops up all over the place, and like just start to do deductive reasoning and say, okay, I think this probably is that because I'm seeing that same address all over the place. And then once you find it, like using things like the Darknet Bible and finding there are those links. I think the one I listed was DAUNT.link. And that site has a listing of all kinds of marketplaces and boards and others that are relatively reliable. So it's about figuring out what you think you can trust on there, but I don't think there's any perfect answer, sadly.
So, Stephen, I'm always a bit slow. So is there a way like on the ClearNet to like put that address in so that I can actually see, where it is, and then from there, like find the links?
Yeah. Let me show you real quick. But again, there's no guarantees, right?
Yeah.
All right, so here's that blockchain site. I'm just going to type in .link. And then when we go there, you can see it says, warning, you have JavaScript enabled, because I'm on the ClearNet. I'm not going through my Whonix system and disable JavaScript. Like this is to ClearNet, but it is available because it's not a .onion site. So this is telling you need to disable JavaScript. But this location shows you there is a link to Dred that we took a look at, and Recon and Daunt Abacus. Like these are all markets that some of them we looked at. XMR guide to how to use that. So I think this would be an example of a relatively reliable location as to how you can get to Dred. And then when you're at Dred, it's kind of considered a trustworthy place by those who are not trustworthy. So if that makes any sense. And on there are all those different sub-Dreds or subreddits, whatever you want to call them, they're all listed there. And each of those have onion sites listed. Like, this is the official link to this market, or this is the official link to this whatever site. So you kind of go through those steps. And if you go onto Dread, there's a link on there for the Darknet Bible, DNM Bible. So you'd be able to go and look at it that way. So again, deductive reasoning, a little bit of OPSEC, and a little bit of trust in it, but also mainly using a system that you don't care about, because that's why we use a virtual machine where we don't store anything critical on there that we're worried about losing, because we're using it to access resources like this.
This is great, Stephen. I really appreciate you sharing this knowledge. We've had quite a few interviews, and just for everyone watching, I've put links below where I've interviewed Stephen and he shared a whole bunch of knowledge. Please let us know in the comments the kind of stuff that you're interested in seeing. Stephen's got this wealth of knowledge, years and years of experience. So what do you want us to talk about? Stephen, any ideas of things you want to share?
Yeah, I think like we talked about earlier, I think a session on crypto would be pretty good. I didn't think of that until we were in that section when I started explaining key pairs and stuff. There's a level of crypto I can go through where it's relatively painless. Obviously, it gets a little technical, a little bit of math, but I think you would get a lot out of it. And anytime stuff like that comes up, I'm happy to do a session on it.
Yeah, we're not talking about money crypto. We're talking about RSA and stuff like that. Yeah. That's great, Stephen. Thanks so much for sharing. Really appreciate you taking the time and sharing with the next generation, helping people who are interested in this stuff and, guiding us on the right path, because it's so easy to go, down the wrong route, if you like, or take the wrong path. So thanks so much for sharing.
Yeah, totally. And last thing I would say is just, if you're going to do it, just be careful. Seriously, be careful, because you can stumble upon things that you shouldn't be looking at. And again, with the breach data, clicking on that stuff may be illegal where you're located, or at least unethical. So just be really careful. I know it's hard, to not be curious, but you want to be smart.